All right, it's time for Real Raw Recovery. And I'm Joe Tilley.
Tyler Tilley.
I'm in North America. You're somewhere else.
Southeast Asia.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, so let's open with a quick moment of silence and the Serenity Prayer. Okay. God, grant us the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, courage to change the things we can, wisdom to know the difference. All right, the reading. It goes as follows. First things first. Some of us have taken very hard knocks to learn this truth, job or no job, wife or no wife. We simply do not stop drinking so long as we place dependence upon other people ahead of dependence on God. That's from Alcoholics Anonymous, the book, page 98. And here's what else it says. Before coming to AA, I always had excuses for taking a drink. She said blah, blah, blah. He said blah, blah, blah. I got fired yesterday. I got a great job today. No area of my life could be good if I drank again. In sobriety, my life gets better each day. I must always remember not to drink, to trust God, and to stay active in AA. Am I putting anything before my sobriety, God, and AA today? See, I don't know about putting anything in front of AA today. Well, I do know about that, but the thing that comes to mind when I read that is that the blah 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 business, the business of having excuses, right, to drink, or having excuses, the excuses that having to drink. It's like when I go through the book, it reminds me that if I'm having a good day or if I'm having a bad day, I'm still screwed. I don't need an excuse.
Do you remember a week ago you asked me about criticism?
Yep.
And you asked me to think deeply about if there's a deeper, if I get offended by criticism, is that because of deeper rooted issues?
Yep.
And you seem to think that all criticism would create that same effect.
Well, maybe. I think there's a healthy way to accept criticism, and there's an unhealthy way to accept criticism. I think the healthy way to accept criticism is to understand that it's somebody else's point of view, not necessarily mine, is part of it, but also that there could be something there that I can use to become a better person. So not to be attached to it, but not to be offended by it, and to be okay with it. And one of the problems that I have with criticism is that I have this, deep down fear of abandonment that leads to me not being able to handle criticism well. I can get through it, and I can get to a point where I'm okay with it, and I can say to myself, "Oh, geez, this is just somebody else's opinion. I don't have to take it personally. It's got nothing to do with me." And I can get to myself and go, "Okay, I'm good." But it's a process. It's difficult for me sometimes to accept criticism, and you know what? That's just the way it is. But I at least I have an awareness that I never used to have, which I think is marvelous, miraculous. So do you have that? Do you have that piece that there's a part of you that about the criticism piece, and you have a deeper sense of where it comes from?
It depends on the criticism. It's not just a blanket. Like if someone says my feet look ugly, I don't have an attachment to that.
Okay.
If someone, for off the top of my head, like if I was fat as a kid and everyone called me fat, and then I got older and I was in shape, but if someone called me fat, it would hurt more than if someone called me my feet look ugly, told me my feet look ugly.
Right.
So that's what I'm saying. It depends on the criticism and how it affects a certain issue from my childhood. It doesn't all just, if someone says I'm stupid, that but if someone cuts deeper with certain issues, I'd have to think of the issue that would affect me because of my childhood. Then that's where I would agree with you. But it's not just because someone criticizes me that I don't feel I'm good enough, or that someone's going to abandon me. It depends on the criticism.
So if you look into your recent history, right, and can you think of a criticism recently that has affected you in a big way? Like, I mean, that had a almost maybe even like inexplicable effect. Like caused you a reaction that you weren't expecting, even maybe, or you had a criticism. You went, holy why did that bother me so much?
Yes.
Okay. So what do you think the source of that was? What do you think? Why do you think that affected you in such a way that it affected you worse than it would normally affect you?
Because of the way I was raised.
But that's means what? Like, I mean, yeah, sure, that's the way I was raised, but how? What is it about the way you were raised that it affected you in such a way? Like, what deep-seated, character defect or whatever characteristic, but it doesn't have to be a defect. What characteristic exists that caused you to be so affected by it?
Self-doubt.
Self-doubt. And where does the self-doubt come from?
My childhood.
Just your childhood in general just caused you self-doubt?
Yes. Not even like, it's not actually even aimed at you. Just the way I think that our culture was raised. And in our household, I would give some credit, like point some fingers in our household, and
right.
But not all. And so, like, okay, so the premise is, it's almost, we kind of touch on it a few times, but the premise is having a backup plan. And when somebody tells me to have a backup plan, it bothers the shit out of me.
Because why though? Why?
Because it makes me think I should have a backup plan when I don't want a backup plan. That's not at all costs.
Right. I don't need a backup plan.
Well, no, like it's not even whether I need it or not. It's like, it's just not happened. So when my mind starts to think about like, and then it creates self-doubt, like, well, this and this happens, and you should probably think about that. It's like, I don't have time to think about that. I don't want to think about that. I want to make my brain think another way, not try to have concocting a backup plan. And then it's like, but you should, because you might not make it. And if you don't make it, you're going to need that plan, and you're going to wish you did.
Yeah.
And I think that stems from like kind of money problems with mom, like always having like, or being more traditional, even from her father. Like, you'd never get into
Right.
acting. You would get into, being an accountant.
Right.
And then the pressure of money, how influential money is. And if you don't make money, well, then you're not successful. And if you're not successful, you're going to have big fucking problems because you chose a path that you need money.
And so all of that comes from this idea that you should have a backup plan.
Because I don't, and that bothers me because then it would indicate that it's plausible I don't make it.
And you don't want to even think that, right? Right.
But when people that care about me would suggest it, I feel hurt.
Right.
Because
they don't trust you. They don't have faith in you.
Well, no, they just care about me. So they're trying to look out for my best interest and do what they would do.
So what is it about that bothers you though? Is it, like, what is it? Like, say I care about you, Tyler, and I want you to have a backup plan. And you say screw off, and why? What is it about what I'm saying to you that bothers you?
No, see, I don't say screw off at all. I take it.
But you're saying it bothers you.
Right, it does bother me.
You say, yeah. So so it affects you. What is it about what I'm saying there that affects you? What is it about what I'm saying that makes you want to say screw off?
Well, it's quite complex, but so one would be that I don't want to be wrong. And I don't want to have to face, like, I told you so.
Because that'll hurt your ego a little bit? Is that what it is?
For sure. But I think the more, as I say that out loud, the deeper issue is that there's a possibility, and other people are seeing it, that I'm not going to succeed in what I'm doing.
And then what happens?
Then I start to think about it.
That you're not going to succeed. And then, so say for example, okay, and then play this out now. And so you don't succeed, and they were right. Then what does that mean?
I guess we have to try again next lifetime.
Yeah, but what I'm trying to get at is that, like, why? What part of you is affected by that? Like, I know that what affects me, the reason that I can't handle criticism, the things that bother me, what people think about me, have to do with more about me having that fear of abandonment and feeling that I'm not worthy, and I don't measure up, and as a result of that, I'm going to be left alone and I'll be dead. Like, that's how deep I take it. So, so what do you think it is about you that is so affected by other people's opinions?
It's not people, again, it's not people's opinion. It's specific instances that affect.
Right. Okay. So yeah, specific instances. When people tell you you should have a backup plan, that affects you. And why? What part of that affects you? Is it the fact that they don't trust you? Is it the fact that then you'll have the self-doubt, then you'll have the doubt. And what does that mean?
My capability, am I good enough?
Yes, you ask yourself, are you good enough?
Right.
And why is that a problem? Why is that a problem?
Maybe it makes me question my sanity.
Yeah.
Like, is this all for nothing? Am I literally going insane, and people are witnessing it and trying to jump in?
Okay.
And so if I'm insane, well, then everything I've built is for nothing.
Okay. So
that's
is
a
that
fear.
true?
That's
Is
a
that
fear.
true? Yeah. I know it's a fear. And why does it, if you know it's a fear, why do you let it bother you?
Because I have certain people that I let in my life to give me that kind of feedback. And so it's not just taken with a grain of salt. So I really look at it and I digest it, and I'm willing to open the book and question everything. And I don't like the feeling of self-doubt. And then I look at that, and it's just a hard pill to swallow, because at the end of the day, I don't know anything. Like, I don't really know. And so it's just like, I start thinking of plan Bs, and they sound fucking hideous. So that's
right.
scary.
But isn't it okay to not know anything? Can you get to a place where you say, okay, I don't know anything, and that's okay. I don't know anything.
I try to turn it over.
Yeah. And if you do that, right? If you get to that place, then there's nothing to fear, right?
I guess I also have another person that tells me the exact opposite.
Another person, okay.
That tells me I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, and everything is exactly where it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
And that if it wasn't, he would pipe up, meaning that he wouldn't have that answer for every scenario. That he's giving me a clear assessment of my life from his vision, from his view, and from how he knows me.
Right.
So I like that perspective. So it all comes back to the initial point of, like, so that specific criticism of you should have a plan B is hard to swallow for me, more than if you told me I had fat feet. Is my point. Not all criticism hits me the same way, as you can see.
Yeah. And I think everybody's going to agree with that.
But last week you didn't.
Well, no, what I told you was that the reason that when I get criticized in a way that it affects me, the reason that it affects me is because of that deep-seated fear. And that's why it affects me, because I have something deep inside me where there's a place where it's kind of like an empty place where I feel this unworthiness. And the reason, and I've taken that further and realized that the reason I have this hole in myself that is where the unworthiness exists is because there was a core belief that I had as a child, that somehow I didn't have enough value, that people would recognize that and they would leave me because I wasn't enough. And the fear of being left alone and dying is where that's where the core belief exists for me. And so I do recognize that I have this core belief, and I know where it comes from. And and I know today that it's not real. But when I get criticized sometimes, and I go to this little place, this little child place, I allow it to affect me in a way that really it shouldn't, but it does. And so because I have that unworthiness hold. So that's what I'm talking about, is like there's something deep. And I was going to ask you if you thought that there was some place like that, and it sounds like, yeah, you've recognized that there is a place really deep inside you where you have.
My point is that it's not all the same. It's
No, I know,
one
but
whole.
not all Yeah, but not all criticism is the same. Of course not. I'm not saying that, and it doesn't at all affect you. But there is something. Sometimes you'll take a criticism and it'll go to that place where it affects you really heavily. It causes you to have that self-doubt, causes you to have, to not believe in yourself and all that other stuff. And it may be kind of the same thing that I'm talking about. It may be that self-doubt of your worth and your value. And so somehow you have to prove it. And then somehow this criticism is not allowing you to prove it, or it's proving otherwise. Somehow this criticism is proving to me that the unworthiness is real.
I hear what you're saying, but what I'm saying is I can bring up other instances that would, if someone criticized, would really prick me the wrong way, and they wouldn't all funnel down to I'm not good enough.
Okay.
But what you're saying is that they all funnel down to where you're going to be alone and down.
No. Anything that hits me any criticism that comes my way, and I'm unable to handle it well, I know where it's going to. It's going to that small place.
So that's what I'm saying. I don't agree with that.
Okay. Good. I don't have to have you agree with me, because I mean, if I believe that that's what happens for me, that's fine. I mean, you can believe whatever you want, and your truth can be different. I don't care. Because I don't have to get you to agree with me. I don't need that.
So, like, for example, remember, I'll do this delicately. I don't think I need to, but just in case. Remember, you went behind to meet the band one time?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So you have that, right?
Yes.
And it made you feel probably I would give you that one that would go down to not feeling.
Oh,
good
yeah. Right? Not worthy. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Now, what happens if someone criticized one of your children and you overheard it? Is that going down to the same root cause or is it two different things that are going to make you feel equally uncomfortable with yourself, but they're not the same stem at all?
You know what? Yes, I think it is the same, because I, right or wrongly, take responsibility for that, for my children, and probably wrongly, because they're not me. But it's like when somebody criticizes my kids, it's like they criticize me, and I go to that same place. It's like somehow they're not worthy, I'm not worthy, and they're not worthy because I'm not worthy. And so that's kind of where I go with that, and I mean it doesn't make sense. So then I have to understand, wait a minute. Okay, so the root of that is because I believe that if I'm not worthy, everybody's going to leave me. I'm not going to have enough value, and everybody's going to leave me, and I'll be alone, and I'll die. And I'm not ever going to be alone. I've always got the power supporting me, and I've always got my big child there to support that little 5-year-old child. So I'm never going to be alone. I'm never going to die. I'm going to be okay. So I can let this go. And that's kind of the process for me. And I like having that process because it allows me to let that stuff go. Because it doesn't matter how sharp or strong the criticism, it's something I can let go.
No, we agree about everything. It's just this. I just didn't think that everything for me funnels down into one stem.
Yeah, I like that. We agree about everything. That could be the title.
No, but like when you're talking about how to let things go and how you're looking at it, I just don't like when I zoom in with a micro lens.
Yeah.
I would have different things from my perhaps childhood or my upbringing or my philosophy that if they get punctured, it hurts the ego because I'm so closely tied in with these specific things. So it questions different parts of me. It questions different things that I hold very closely, but they're not all the same. It's not all the same. Not the same reasons why I'm holding on to this thing so closely. Like if you're talking to me about like self-doubt, and even like if you can pinpoint it and expose it for what it is, there could be different things. Different criticisms would perhaps pierce a different part of me that's not about self-doubt.
Yeah. Yeah. And maybe not, but who knows? Maybe it's all related to the same thing. It's just different levels.
Maybe.
All right, ready to wrap it up?
Yep.
Okay, this has been Real Raw Recovery. And let's close with the Serenity we prayer.
All right.
God,
grant
us the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, courage to change the things we can, and wisdom to know the difference.